Lithia unfortunately had to refuse. I'm sorry, but I can't be your exclusive trainer. Your Grace. Johan glanced at her, and Lithia felt a pang of anxiety. He set down his coffee cup and asked, why? Is the salary insufficient? Or perhaps you're not satisfied with the conditions? If there's an issue, I can make adjustments. Lithia unfortunately had to refuse. I'm sorry, but I can't be your exclusive trainer, or a novel. He would easily be the male lead. Johan trying to persuade her was such a pain. She was the first trainer Kazim hadn't shown any, to your liking. His voice and appearance were incredibly persuasive. Plus, he's a duke. So if this were a webtoon, hostility toward. But I still have no idea what kind of world this is. Even so, she remained firm. I'm long and peaceful life as an ordinary commoner. I don't want to get tangled up with someone who's so obviously the male lead. 5 years ago, I remembered my past life. After that, for a while, I wondered what world this was, if maybe it was. The world from a novel I'd read in my past life? What if I was the female lead of the story? Would anything be different? I actually got my hopes up, but in reality, I was still just a commoner, and nothing more, an orphan. It was a silly dream I had when I was naive, but I was very lucky to meet a director who was as warm as a mother, and I got to grow up with mischievous but kind-hearted kids. Of the story, would anything be different? I actually got my hopes up, but in reality, I was still just a commoner. Was as a trainer at a dragon training center, and Lithia arrived at Ruru's pen, my pretty. The world from a novel I'd read in my past life? What if I was the female lead? In a world where dragons are part of daily life, sometimes it's been 5 years since I remembered my past life. Lithia was loading food onto a cart before pushing it along. Her job, roles. How could I not be ecstatic about being a trainer? Of course that doesn't mean dragons are easy to tame. Depending on the species, they can breathe fire, fly, or swim in the sea. Dragons with their special powers and abilities can crush buildings, like crackers if they want to, so you can imagine what they could do to a person. She didn't want Rue biting her clothes. No, you don't. For dragons to coexist peacefully with humans, training isn't an option, it's a necessity. Lithia looked at the spotless pen in front of her. All right, all done. Rue, come on over. But it was pouting and wouldn't even look at her. Lithia teased. I was going to give you a snack, don't you want it? Rue's ears immediately perked. She pretended to walk away. I was going to reward you for being so good while I cleaned, but if you don't want it, I guess that's fine. Lithia made sure to watch its reaction. Rue nudged its head against her leg, trying to act cute. Lithia couldn't resist it. You're too cute. She immediately gave Rue a treat. This is your reward for being so patient. And waiting, okay? Now then, since I'm done cleaning, it's mealtime. Lithia smiled as she watched it eat heartily. I'm so glad you seem healthy today, too. I remember when you first got here, you wouldn't even eat. Next up, I'll check on Rue's acclimatization. How is the riding training going? Suddenly, Vic burst in, panting. Trainer. She had to stop her work and go out. What is it? He panted heavily. Please, I need your help with this. The pure-blooded black dragon under Trainer Thompson's care is going on a rampage. Lithia frowned, remembering. It's that bastard. A dragon of the stonewall species, with gray scales as hard as rock and plants of all sizes growing on its body, giving it a soft feeling, like a carpet. They are a large, slow-moving, and gentle species, or so they say. Bruin was rampaging and roaring. Thompson was trembling, while the orange-haired guy next to him urged, Try to stop it, Thompson. It's your responsibility. He tried to argue back. You want me to approach an animal that's raging like that? Suddenly, they both saw Lithia appear, and the orange-haired guy cheered happily. Lithia. Thompson looked displeased. Who called you? The orange-haired guy scolded him. You idiot! Someone had to call her since you obviously can't handle this. Thompson jumped up. Who was it? Who's talking nonsense? Lithia just said softly, Shut up. You want to provoke. Did even more. He angrily grabbed her by the collar. What, you little? Lithia asked nonchalantly. Hey, can you handle this or not? Thompson frowned. She slapped his hand away. Then just stick to your regular training regimen. Thompson's face turned red with anger. This wench! The orange-haired guy suddenly shouted. Wait! Bruin had closed in on them without them noticing. Lithia was startled for a moment. She felt it was hard to believe. No way! To stop Bruin's rampage, Lithia took out a food pellet for it. She tried to coax it. Easy now, please, I'm not going to hurt you. Lithia dropped the food pellet in front of it. She waited for Bruin's reaction. Lithia stepped forward to pet it, whispering, encouragingly, Good, just like that. Let me get that painful thing off of you. When Lithia saw the object, she immediately realized it was just as she thought. Of course, this would cause pain. Lithia acted slowly. It's okay, girl. Just bear with me. For a second, okay? She decisively grabbed hold of the chili seed. With a slight toss from Bruin, Lithia fell to the ground. Everyone, it was horrified. Lithia, are you okay? She was unharmed. Yeah, this is the cause. Suddenly, someone recognized what Lithia was holding. Wait, isn't that a sun chili seed? Aren't these supposed to be removed regularly? But it's right here. Thompson hurriedly called for Rick. Get over here now. Rick came running timidly. Yes, sir. He kicked him hard. You idiot, you can't even manage one dragon properly. Rick could only endure it. I'm sorry. She found Thompson's actions irritating. That's enough. Trainer Thompson, an apprentice under the guidance of a veteran trainer, is bound to make mistakes. But how? Could someone who works with the Bruin species not know that you have to remove a sun chili seed immediately upon seeing it? He gritted his teeth. What are you implying? Lithia said, without a trace of fear. Do I need to explain it again for you to understand? The one who overlooked such a basic issue, rode the dragon, and made it go berserk, was you. Thompson got even more furious. Wait a minute, Lithia. The supervisor, head of the training grounds Asa, was now furious. Lithia, what were you thinking, letting things get to this point? She replied nonchalantly. All I did was stop a Bruin dragon from rampaging, that's all. He angrily pointed at Lithia's face. That situation clearly needed to be handled. She continued without missing a beat. And when someone has already been assigned to handle it, it's unnecessary for another trainer to jump in. Right? The director became hesitant after hearing that. Well, there are times when it's just unavoidable. Thompson is backed by Count Harris. He's one of the biggest donors to the ASA training center. You haven't forgotten that, have you? If you don't want to get fired, then watch your mouth and think about the orphanage too. It's true you have top-tier skills. But don't forget that's the only reason we put up with your attitude. You know whose recommendation you'll need if you leave this place. Don't you? Lydia cursed angrily in her head. Damn it, those bastards. As she walked down the empty hallway, Lydia thought to herself, in this fantasy world, recalling memories of my past life, there isn't much of a difference between my past life and this one. Whether it's a fantasy or reality, the only thing I'm good at is training dragons. I was so lucky to get a job at the Empire-run ASA training center, but as she was walking, the sound of whispers made her steps falter. That woman Lydia is a real pain. Behind the wall were three men talking non-stop. She's so arrogant just because her training skills are a little better. Honestly, what do you guys really think of her skills anyway? Thompson said with a smug laugh. It's just a trick, to boost her reputation by only accepting gentle dragons and training them in a comfortable way. Lydia ignored them, lost in her own thoughts. Even the largest training center, ASA, which is run by the Empire, has these kinds of problems. The gossip continued. Who knows? Maybe she seduced the clients, with that pretty face of hers. Lydia clenched her fists, suppressing her anger, even though it's truly pathetic and infuriating. But thinking about the kids at the orphanage, it's not easy to leave this place. When she went outside, someone asked her with concern, Oh, Trainer Lydia, you've worked so hard. He hugged Ju and kept exclaiming, I can't believe it. Ju could be this adorable? Did you use some kind of magic on him? Lydia smiled and said, You're making me blush, Count Guavas. The Count suggested, if possible, I'd like to stay for a few days to bond with Ju. Lydia explained, You two were separated for a long time because of the training, so he might still feel a little unfamiliar with you, Count. Count Guavas stroked his beard and exclaimed, I'll do as Trainer Lydia advises. It's truly a shame I can't spend all my time on this. Looking at Ju's condition, I'm so glad you took such good care of him. Lydia replied, It's what I must do as a trainer. The Count then proposed, Then Trainer Lydia, I will give you anything you want, if you will be our family's exclusive trainer. Lydia waved her hand and politely refused. I'm sorry about that. I still have much to learn, and I plan to continue working at the ASA Central Training Academy. The Count replied sadly, I see. If you ever change your mind, please contact me anytime. You are always welcome, Trainer Lydia. Lydia replied, Thank you for saying. Suddenly, Ju roared, making them both gasp in surprise. Lydia looked around and moved closer to him, that is, calm. Down, Ju, the Count asked. Trainer Lydia, what is that? Lydia answered truthfully, I've only heard rumors. But if it's radiating so much heat that you can see the heat waves from afar, and if it's a dragon that only chooses one fam, if it's from a noble family, it must be an extremely rare breed of dragon. It seems Duke Johan has arrived. The director was cowering in fear before someone. Johan spoke while reading a document. I came here because I heard that this is the top training facility in the Empire. He answered cautiously. Yes, that's correct. We always pride ourselves on having the best skills. The director was trying to guess what he wanted. The Duke's visit must mean something. Johan said calmly. I can see your confidence. I want to entrust you with the training of a dragon. He thought to himself, what a stroke of luck. The director beamed. Are you referring to the training for the dragons that the knights of the ducal family will ride, correct? He refuted, no, it's my dragon. He asked again, trembling. You mean the Agris dragons? Johan nodded. Yes, to be more precise. I'm looking for someone worthy of being its personal trainer. The director became flustered, but it could also negatively affect the Duke's dragon. We can't ignore the possibility that the dragon will develop an attitude of hostility toward humans in general, and its trainer in particular. He was extremely skeptical. What about the family's private trainer? Perhaps aside from the Duke himself. No one else can handle it, even if a qualified personal trainer were to appear. Johan cut the director's train of thought. If that's what you're worried about, I don't think you need to be. The director asked hesitantly. What do you mean? He deliberately stressed. The decision isn't yours to make, it's Kazim's. Lithia met Chris on the training grounds. A summons? He immediately explained. Yes, Trainer Lithia. It's a direct order from the director. She frowned and thought. Why the sudden summons? Lithia hurried to find Count on Bat. Please wait a moment. Count on Bat. I'm sorry, but I have to end the training session here. He wondered. What's wrong? She explained hesitantly. The director has summoned all the trainers, so Count on Bat immediately understood. Is it because of Duke Anbaran? If Trainer Lithia says so, then I have no choice but to comply. Lithia leaned in and whispered to him, Next time you visit, I'll write down the recipe for the treats that Du likes. Count on Bat got excited. You promise? Thank you so much for your help, she quickly asked Chris. Where are we gathering? He replied, At the first training ground. The director didn't look pleased to see Lithia. You're late, Trainer Lithia. She could only apologize. I'm sorry, Mr. Director. Count on Bat, the owner of the dragon I'm caring for. Paid a visit. Lithia was exhausted, her face covered in sweat. Then she saw Johan. Who's that? I have a bad feeling. He saw that everyone had arrived and announced, the reason I've gathered you all here is to select a trainer. For his grace, the Duke's dragon. A murmur went through the crowd below. Duke and Baron's dragon? An Agris dragon? Normally, that breed is handled by the ducal family's own private trainer. The director cleared his throat to restore order. Silence. Participation is not mandatory. Only those confident they can train his grace's dragon may step forward. Lithia frowned and thought, is he insane? Agris dragons only choose members of the Duke and Baron's family, which means there's very little information about their species. A lack of information means increased risk. We don't know what kind of actions might provoke an Agris dragon. That means the trainer has to use their own frail body to withstand the dragon's rage. But why would the Duke entrust his dragon to a trainer here, instead of the specialists from his own household? But overwhelming the anxiety, hands were already shooting up from below. I'll do it! Me too! I'll take the job! This is definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It sounds good, but the Duke's territory is pretty far from the capital. If I get chosen, would I have to move all the way out there? Suddenly, Thompson spoke up provocatively. Scared? No matter how tough you act, you're just a woman. Hesitating at a chance like this just proves it. Melissa quickly shoved him away. You meathead, watch your mouth. She just looked disgusted, whatever. Thompson got angry at being told off. Who are you calling a meathead? Did you just push me? She didn't look scared at all. Yeah, I did. I heard you couldn't even handle a simple stonewall dragon. So you took to bullying apprentices instead. That makes you the meathead, doesn't it? He growled. You dare. They were making such a scene that Lydia had to butt in. Hey, the supervisor is watching. Thompson walked away. Consider yourself lucky. Melissa noticed her hesitation. Is it because of the orphanage? Lydia had no choice but to admit it. Yeah, you know my situation. She thought for a moment, then said, but if it were the director, I think she'd scold you for passing up an opportunity like this. Maybe if she were here right now, she'd tell me to follow my heart and wouldn't nag me about it at all. The supervisor brought out a basket of wooden sticks. The training order will be decided by drawing lots, so everyone get ready. But honestly, compared to a roller coaster life, I'd much rather have a stable and peaceful one. Johan didn't forget to reassure everyone. If things get dangerous, I will intervene, so your safety is guaranteed. That's why I'm definitely not participating, especially with someone who looks like a male lead straight out of a novel. The moment I get involved, it'll just be the start of hardship and adversity. I'm not volunteering, so it's not going to happen. It hadn't even been that long since it started, and the first participant with orange hair was already scared into running away. Even Melissa didn't fare any better, and the supervisor was no exception. Oh no, Lydia stared blankly at the scene. What the heck? This is even more serious than I thought. Training that thing is going to be incredibly difficult. My condolences in advance to the poor soul who draws that lot. Before she knew it, she heard Thompson's voice again. Women are all the same. Watch closely and see how it's done. He confidently approached Kazim, while Lydia focused on observing his every move. He placed a hand on its body. Thompson boasted arrogantly, see how simple it is? You guys really are a bunch of useless fools. Suddenly, she screamed in horror, hey, you idiot! He just looked back, confused, huh? Kazan lunged at Thompson with its sharp claws, catching him completely off guard. Then, as Kazan opened its mouth to breathe fire, Thompson panicked and screamed, help me! The dragon kept Thompson pinned down, giving him no chance to escape. Seeing this, Lydia immediately blew her signal whistle, the sound drawing Kazan's attention. She quickly ran to rescue her troublesome colleague. Everyone, get the magic tools ready! Melissa raised her hand and called out to her. Lydia! Thompson was still screaming for help. Do something! Lydia was now on the training grounds, her eyes fixed on Kazim, and see how it's done. He confidently approached Kazim, while Lydia focused on observing his every move. Look, I won't come near you without your permission. She thought to herself that while observing it, she'd noticed it was extremely smart. Even though it was clearly annoyed and bothered, it only gave a token warning and then didn't move an inch. Finally, Kazan's claws lifted off Thompson. Lydia thought irritably, if I can get a handle on this situation, I'm telling the manager I'll quit if they don't fire that bastard. And then, Kazan began to glance over at her. Lydia looked back, thinking, I'll wait for its breathing to steady, then slowly back away. Suddenly, Kazan stomped its foot hard on the ground. The dragon let out a piercing roar. Lydia gritted her teeth, thinking, crap, did I act too soon? Melissa rushed toward her in a panic, while Johan watched with bated breath. However, to everyone's surprise, Kazan nuzzled its head against Lydia. Kazan licked her head affectionately with its tongue. Lydia, stunned, silently, thought, Johan and the manager came down to assess the situation, both looking utterly shocked. Then, Johan spoke coldly. To think there are trainers this incompetent? Melissa rushed toward her in a panic, while Johan watched with bated breath. However, to everyone's surprise, Kazan, he moved forward. We'll speak about this later. Johan walked over to where Kazan was still licking Lydia. It's truly disappointing. What kind of trainer approaches a dragon without first observing its reaction? The manager stammered. Well, it's because, her head to look. Then Johan asked her, what is your name? She bowed her head fearfully and replied, it's Lydia, your grace, enthusiastically. The dragon was even nuzzling her. Seeing him approach, Lydia slowly turned. Acting on principle, he crossed his arms and said flatly, you're the only one here who seems to follow them, Lydia asked in surprise. Pardon me? Then, Johan made Lydia an offer. Would you be interested in taking charge of Kazan's? Johan said, you are quite impressive, trainer Lydia. She gave a weak laugh and replied, it was nothing, I was just Duke's exclusive trainer. In his office, Lydia stated her position. Training? She glanced fearfully at Kazan and thought, ah, no, I never planned on becoming the... She replied immediately, if it were a matter of the terms, the moment I had the chance to train the Duke's dragon, I'm sorry, but I cannot become your exclusive trainer. Johan took a sip of tea and asked, why not? Are you unhappy with the terms? A mistake, I would not have intervened. Lydia thought to herself, the manager will be furious, but I can't. I would not have hesitated. I didn't originally intend to participate in the confrontation test with the Agris dragon, and if my colleague hadn't made her head to look. Then Johan asked her, what is your name? She bowed her head fearfully and replied, it's Lydia, your grace. Abandon my precious orphanage. To me, the orphanage isn't just the place where I to live carefree lives. This is the path I've chosen. I can't leave the Asa training grounds. After that, Lydia. And the compensation for serving me, a duke. To refuse it all, is there any guarantee that Kazan will ever meet another trainer it can tolerate? As Lydia left, there was a knock on the door, and he answered, enter. The trembling manager handed a stack of documents to Johan, stammering with his hands clasped. Your Grace, Johan asked, what is it? The manager was sweating bullets. He explained, Your Grace's dragon might like trainer Lydia, but her skill set is a different issue. As you can see, Your Grace, trainer Lydia has never been in charge of any dragons belonging to the nobles of the Ara Empire. She primarily handles dragons for less affluent individuals from other to live carefree lives. This is the path I've chosen. I can't leave the Asa training grounds. After that, Lydia was clear. He wanted to keep Lydia as the golden goose for his facility. Hand over Lydia? That's ridiculous. In reality, Lydia, countries. So it's a bit of a stretch to say her skills are truly exceptional. The manager's intention, let that wench destroy my son's passion. He thought that if it weren't for Count Harris, who had stuffed his pockets with bribes, he could have exploited Lydia even more, especially since the recent incident gave him a perfect excuse to kick Thompson out of the training grounds, which was even better. Johan's voice cut through his thoughts. Manager, I don't care how talented your trainers are. If my dragon rejects them, of what use are they to me? Called out by name, the manager started to sweat profusely, saying, well, Johan said coldly, if you're so concerned about the trainer's skills, perhaps you'd like to handle it, is an indispensable part of our training facility. The manager recalled when Count Harris warned him not to, would even agree to be an exclusive trainer. She has always turned down those kinds of offers before. The paper Johan was reading said, personal information, originates from an orphanage and has a deep bond with the place. He then stood up to leave. I'll be going now. Oh, and as you brought up, I'll be leaving Kazan at the training facility. The manager broke out in a cold sweat and asked, excuse me? Johan glanced at him and said one more thing before leaving. You have someone here who can handle him, right? I trust you have no objections? Lydia and the manager were talking in his office when she suddenly exclaimed in shock. What? So you're saying the Duke is entrusting his Agrix dragon to the training facility? Is the Duke out of his mind? Seriously, do you know how many dragons I'm already responsible for? And now you're telling me I have to look after an Agrix dragon too, he said helplessly. Well, do you think there's anyone else who can handle it? Lydia paused, thinking, well, that's... He then tried to persuade her. You don't have to train it. There's no official request. Just feed it and take care of it, that's all. Lydia slammed her hand on the table and shot to her feet, shouting, Manager, Thompson is the one who caused all this trouble. Why are you dragging me into it? The manager tried to explain. It was an order from his grace. I don't have a choice. Lydia thought furiously. Thompson, that useless jerk. All he ever does is stir up trouble from beginning to end and then lies there playing dead in the infirmary. That Agrix dragon should have just stomped his skull in. And then she pulled a letter of resignation from her pocket. Manager, thank you for everything. He knew exactly what Lydia intended and rushed to stop her. No, I won't accept your resignation. The manager groveled at her feet, clinging to her leg and pleading. What about the dragons you're in charge of? Please, think about them. Those dragons. Lydia thought helplessly. Ugh, seriously. He's doing this on purpose. I swear he is. He knows exactly what my weakness is. But he's not wrong, if I just up and leave. Leaving behind the small, abandoned creatures, she thought of Jura, whom she had once cared for, and couldn't help but get lost in thought. In the end, Lydia reluctantly agreed, and the manager was so happy he looked like he'd struck gold. I knew it. However, she immediately said, but I'm only doing the feeding, the walks, and cleaning up its poop and stuff. I'm not doing anything more than that. He fell to his knees, thanking Lydia profusely. Of course, thank you so much, you're my savior, she said irritably. I'm only doing, and couldn't help but get lost in thought. In the end, Lydia reluctantly agreed, and the manager was so happy he looked like he'd struck gold. I knew it. Leaving behind the small, abandoned creatures, she thought of Jura, whom she had once cared for, and couldn't help but get lost in thought. In the end, Lydia reluctantly agreed, and the manager was so happy he looked like he'd struck gold. I knew it. And asked, are you okay? Lydia opened the stall door and pushed the food cart in. She thought to herself, ugh, it's so stuffy in here. Then Lydia looked at it and asked, you must be feeling anxious because of the sudden change in environment, right? As she was speaking, Kazan saw, leaving behind the small, abandoned creatures, she thought of Jura, whom she had once cared for, was hung on the stall door with the words, Special Care Trainer Lydia. She brought food to Kazan. Commanded, no, wait. Kazan obeyed her and lay down, as if it didn't understand what Lydia was trying to do. She looked at it and thought, wow, this is insane. It's so cute. After that, Lydia gave Kazan permission to eat. Good boy, all right, go ahead and eat. Kazan looked at her, a little confused. Lydia looked at it and thought, it seems you're used to being spoiled, huh? I think this might be the first time it has been. Leaving behind the small, abandoned creatures, she thought of Jura, whom she had once cared for. Again, no, I can't. Then she turned to Kazan and asked, are you finished eating? It let out a growl, telling her it was done. A minute, take it slow. It sniffed her hand, and suddenly Kazan's eyes widened. Then Kazan roared in her face. Lydia, seriously, tried to run, but Lydia was tougher, using all her strength to hold the leash tight. Defeated, Kazan flopped onto the ground in a burst of anger. Lydia gritted her teeth and chanted in her head, be patient, you have to be patient. Getting involved will only bring me trouble. I'm just here to feed it, walk it, and provide basic care, eating. Next, Lydia fastened the leash onto Kazan's head. It's time for your walk. It clearly didn't like this and, on its head, she immediately thought, this is bad. Then Lydia stared intently at Kazan and commanded, that's it and that's all. No getting any more involved. She strained to hold its reins tight. So frustrating. Lydia gave a sharp tug. Lydia turned with a small gasp. Ah, your grace. Seeing Johan, Kazan went over and nuzzled against him. Johan soothed it. There. I'm sorry I'm late and made you wait. Lydia watched this scene. I told you not to act up. Johan, who had appeared from who knows where, spoke up. Just as I expected, you're the one taking care of. Today? Lydia avoided Johan's gaze. Well, I only did what was necessary. He then said, so you mean it wasn't bad? She added, anyway, for a trainer, the opportunity to care for an Agris dragon is very rare. But I'm still not taking the job, Lydia thought. Johan turned to look at her and said, what a surprise. The trainer that Kazan likes turned out to be a woman. Lydia trembled slightly and clenched her fists, because not many female trainers are in charge of, and couldn't help but think. So he can make a face like that too. Suddenly, he called out to her, how is taking care of Kazan? Important, as long as Kazan doesn't reject that person. Lydia thought doubtfully. What? Even if you look at me like that, I have no intention. Medium to large-sized dragons like this. She thought to herself, what is that supposed to mean? Why does that sound like a dig at me? Johan said, but it doesn't. Huh? Johan moved closer to Lydia. You can always change your mind. She silently looked up at him, then Lydia bowed her head, of becoming his exclusive trainer. And then he spoke, Trainer Lydia. She replied. He smirked. Is that so? Let's see how long you can resist. Lydia wondered in confusion. Huh? Did I say something wrong? All right. Johan turned to leave. I want you to take good care of Kazan until I return. She replied. Yes, since you've placed your trust in me, I will do my very best. Please, anyone, just reply soon. In short, I'm screwed. I tried sending letters to the other training centers, but they all rejected me. And when I asked for help feeding them, even my colleagues ran away. This is my current situation. Lydia reassured herself. I'm fine. Count on Bat, pleased, praised her skills. Why is he so hard to understand? I already sent letters to other training centers earlier. Today is the last day, isn't it? He elegantly stroked his beard and replied, yes, they're as magical as ever. Even though she was troubled, she forced a professional smile and replied, you're too kind, Count on Bat, who obtained the dragon training certificate at the youngest age with the highest score, correct? And yet, you weren't accepted into the Imperial training team, which gave me this opportunity. Among the aristocratic dragon trainers, it's time for me to go home. Honestly, it's a shame I have to leave you behind. I heard you're the one. For a trainer who can control a dragon at their master's command, it's only natural to grow close to power and wealth. Lydia couldn't help but radiate a terrifying aura as she remembered the past. I didn't mind being transferred to an outer branch because of that manager. You weren't accepted into the Imperial training team, which gave me this opportunity. Among the aristocratic dragon trainers, after all, it was what Count Harris requested. But her hand reached out to gently stroke Rue, and the upper class make up the majority. For them, dragons play a decisive role in battles and you truly aren't greedy at all. But a little healthy ambition is a good thing. Don't you think that fish can't live in water that's too clear? If you change your mind, contact me anytime. I just love dragons. Just watching them makes me happy. That's why I gritted my teeth and worked so hard to get my certificate, and then I joined the Asa Training Center to look at dragons to my heart's content. She was surprised to find a gemstone in the cloth Count Onbat handed her. What's this? What more could I want? Lydia held the gemstone up to her eyes to inspect it. If I sell or give this away, maybe I could hire 1 or 2 priests. Johan suddenly spoke, making her jump. So you two know each other? She turned around, flustered. Duke and Baron, sir. Lydia was completely stunned when she recognized the familiar figure standing behind him. Director? She looked between them, bewildered. Why is the director standing there next to the Duke? They have no connection to each other, do they? The director asked gently. How have you been, Lydia? She quickly replied, yes, I'm doing fine. Johan left without hesitation. I don't need anything, so I'll go visit Kazan. You two can talk in the meantime? She wondered to herself. What the hell? The director's hands gently took hers. Lydia, she said with a smile, I want to talk to you. Do you have some time? Small cookies and a cup of warm tea were brought out. The director slowly picked up her teacup and took a sip. Lydia impatiently spoke up. Is something wrong, director? You aren't sick, are you? Or are the kids unwell? The director smiled and called her name, Lydia. What kind of dragon is from Duke and Baron's Agrest line? She froze for a moment. Flustered by the sudden question, Lithia snapped out of it and replied, "It's very impressive. Even when it's standing still, I feel like it's radiating a red light. If you touch its scales, there are many small bumps and grooves, so the shimmering light is from the refraction on the surface. I'm not sure if it's the effect of magic or not." The director exclaimed happily. "Oh my! Is that right?" she said excitedly. "Yes, like a glowing ember. No wonder it's called a moving volcano. I bet you would love it too, director, if you saw it. Of all the dragons I'm in charge of, it's one of the most beautiful and intelligent." The two of them quickly fell into a pleasant chat as time went by. The director looked at her fondly and called her name again, Lithia. She immediately answered, "Yes." The director slowly made her request, "I want you to train Duke Anbaran's dragon." Lydia looked at her seriously and asked, "What do you mean?" She slowly explained, "Lately, people have been saying that an outstanding trainer was able to soothe the Duke's dragon. Not long after that, the Duke visited the orphanage. He donated a large sum of money and even brought along a priest. Fortunately, that priest was willing to help treat the children at the orphanage who needed it." Lydia couldn't help but ask, "What about you, director? Were you also treated?" She gently continued, "Of course I received treatment too. That's why I was able to come all the way here." Lydia's hands clenched slightly with emotion. With a constant warm smile, the director looked at her. "I'm so glad. I'm really so glad," she continued. "So Lydia, don't worry about us anymore. Don't miss out on the opportunity that Duke Anbaran has given you. I know better than anyone how dedicated you are to this job. You've worked so hard that your hands have ended up like this." She quickly tried to explain. "Director, this is nothing." The director cut her off. "Yes, you always say that. Working will make your hands like this. But even so, who can deny that these hands are proof of your hard work? I've always felt so guilty, as if we were holding you back, when you could always reach so much higher. My proud daughter, I truly hope your efforts will be rewarded." Johan was lying calmly beside the sleeping Kazan, whose eyes suddenly snapped open when he sensed another presence. Lithia was standing right in front of them. "Did you have a nice chat, Trainer Lithia?" She turned away and said sarcastically, "It's all thanks to you, Duke." He smiled mockingly and asked, "You're thanking me?" Lydia declared. "I've thought about your offer, Duke." Johan pretended not to understand. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "What proposal?" She looked at him, annoyed. "Seriously? After coming all the way to the orphanage, he's going to act all cold now? So obnoxious." Lithia retorted, "What a shame. After all that effort, have you forgotten your own proposal? Then let's just forget it. Like I said before, there are countless trainers more experienced and skilled than me." He slowly stood up to face her, saying, "Can't I even joke around a little?" "Fine, since you've changed your mind, which is wonderful news, shouldn't we discuss the details?" Lithia smirked in satisfaction. "That's what I was hoping for, Your Grace." The children, all with tears in their eyes, said, "Big sis, you really have to come visit us." Lydia gently bent down to soothe them. "I'll come back, I promise, don't cry." A child sniffled back, "You promised." After signing the contract with the Duke, time flew by, and the day to depart for the Anbaran Duchy arrived. The director gave her a farewell hug and reminded her, "Remember to take care of yourself. I'll always be here waiting for you." She smiled and promised, "I'll write to you." A familiar female voice interrupted their farewell. "Leaving now, Lithia?" Surprised by her appearance, Lydia saw it was Melissa. She said with a bright smile, "Goodbyes are a little sad, but this is for the best." She quickly walked over. "Thank you for coming all this way to see me off. I know you're very busy." Melissa replied cheerfully, "I have some news. Think of it as a congratulatory gift." Lydia repeated dubiously, "News?" She immediately leaned closer, whispering, "I heard the Duke of Anbaran made an official statement about Thompson, and he was fired." Lithia couldn't help but celebrate, giving her a high five. She commented sarcastically, "He's lucky it's only 6 weeks of treatment. The Duke is so cool. When I get some free time, we should go grab some noni drinks." Everyone waved Lithia off. Melissa shouted, "Goodbye, work hard. It's not exactly a good thing, but now that I'm leaving, I'm feeling it a little." Johan bluntly cut through her thoughts. "You're late." She scratched her head in embarrassment and explained, "I'm sorry, I had to say my goodbyes." He added a sarcastic jab, acting like you're never coming back. "I believe the contract ensures you have plenty of vacation days and benefits." Lydia puffed her cheeks out, annoyed. Why did he even come to get me when I could have just gone on my own? But the terms of the contract are really good. It pays well and includes vacation time and benefits. But there's one thing that bothers me. She began slowly. "Your top priority is making sure Kazan can socialize with the other dragons of the Ducal Knights." Just as I suspected, he's worried about socialization. Johan asked curiously, "Did you have some sort of premonition?" Lithia glanced over some notes and remarked, "The relationship between Kazan and Your Grace isn't the issue. No, to be more precise. It's actually excellent. It's obvious you always make time for Kazan. But what about this part? If the trainer decides that additional training is required, an incentive bonus will be provided." Taken literally, who would understand dragon training better than the trainer? He generously declared, "If you see anything lacking that I haven't noticed, just tell me, and I'll compensate you handsomely." Lita thought about the contract. If the trainer decides that additional training is required, an incentive bonus will be provided. If that actually happens, can the additional compensation be specifically adjusted then? Johan was willing to agree. Certainly. As Lithia followed him, she told herself that since they had agreed to adjust the details, later, it would be fine. Enough. Stop overthinking it. I signed the contract, so I really have to do a good job. You can do this, Lithia. Lithia marveled with delight at the majestic natural scenery before her. A view like this is truly perfect for raising dragons. And there is even a small river. It is great, absolutely perfect, Bruce reminded Lithia. I know it is very exciting, but you should calm down, she explained shyly. It is just that I am used to living in the city, so I cannot take my eyes off it. This place would be ideal for raising dragons. He sighed and continued. It is not as good as it seems. Well, because Kazan listens to you, maybe it is not a problem for you, Lithia. You will understand when we get there. Lithia suddenly felt a chill down her spine as she followed them. She petted Kazan and wondered to herself, is this just a gut reaction? I have really worked so hard to raise this stubborn dragon, and then some guy just pops up out of nowhere. And the dragon is all friendly and obedient with him. I would feel betrayed too. Besides, I heard that the eastern region was still really chaotic just a few years ago. There must be a lot of things I do not know, so I cannot just befriend people right away. A loud voice shouted an order. Open the gate! But still, this is the Anbaran territory, belonging to the Duke, who is second in rank only to the Emperor. A place this big must have lots of dragons, right? And plenty of trainers too. What kind of mysterious dragons am I about to meet? Lithia's eyes widened, and she stared blankly for a long moment, completely shocked. Bruce coughed awkwardly. I can guess what you were expecting, but this is the reality, she stammered, as if she still could not believe it. No dragons? Not a single one? For real? We cannot possibly stay here. Kazan needs to be able to run around freely. Bruce quickly started to leave. As if to escape, I will go on ahead. I cannot leave the horses waiting, Lithia shouted in confusion. What? Hey, wait. Up. She watched his retreating figure, unable to shake her suspicion. What is with him? Is he really a certified trainer? Or what? If taming dragons was easy, you would not need trainers. No matter how hard it is, avoiding the problem. Like that is not going to solve anything. Powerless, Lithia said. Let us just head inside for now. Kazan refused to move, pulling her to a stop. Okay, I will admit Kazan is super picky, but it is not like he is trying to act out on purpose. It seems he just does not know any better. Lithia gently reassured Kazan. I am not mad at you. He will be back soon, so do not worry. Let us go inside for now. We will be back out soon. This is our first training session. Be patient and wait, you can. Do that, right, Kazan? It is not like a dragon is at fault for anything. Her footsteps echoed down the vast hallway. The servants in the mansion whispered in surprise. Who is that? Normally, with these types of issues, Your Grace, Duke and Baron, are entirely the owner's fault. Inside Johan's room, a voice called out, Duke, you have returned safely? He placed his coat over the back of a chair and confirmed, Was everything all right while I was away? Basco quickly reported. Many things have happened, but as you know, we have recently lost most of our trainers, just dealing with the rifts that have formed in the process. Inheriting the dukedom is tiring enough. Basco, Duke Johan's private secretary, continued to point out. The biggest problem is when Johan cut him off. Regarding the trainer issue, Basco understood perfectly and offered his suggestion. Yes, we need to eliminate Julius and the Baron and his wife, but the core issue remains Julius and the Baron. Right after I lost my parents as a child, my uncle approached as if he'd been waiting for a long time to seize everything that belonged to the ducal family. For nobles, a dragon symbolizes their family and power, which is why noble families with trainers often treat them like vassals. And in a family that possesses a rare dragon breed like Kazan, their status is even higher, because only the exclusive trainer knows the secret to caring for. But now all those important people have disappeared. He silently analyzed to himself, my uncle must have calculated the risk of the trainers betraying him, but to think he'd kill them all just for disobeying. Just then, Basco asked curiously, By the way, have you found a new trainer yet, Your Grace? Johan then laughed and replied, I have found a very interesting person. Hearing this, he was confused, and Basco couldn't help but ask curiously, what are they like? The answer from him only confused him further, a trainer that Kazan has taken a liking to. Basco couldn't believe it, exclaiming, What? Meanwhile, Johan continued calmly, I said Kazan likes them. It practically lies. Sprawled out on the floor. He suddenly panicked, thinking, Kazan? Of all the dragons, why Kazan? It's an extremely picky breed of dragon. If its standards aren't met, it won't show itself for several years, or even several decades. Even Basco had only met it a few times. As Basco's trembling voice rang out, Lithia was fuming just outside the door. The moment she threw the door open was when he said, You'll see for yourself soon enough. Just then, Lithia shouted, Duke Johan! Confused, he quickly turned to look. She was fuming as she said, There you are. Then, Lithia stomped her foot hard on the ground. Johan was confused by her act. The servants in the mansion whispered in surprise, Who is that? Normally, with these types of issues, Your Grace, Duke and Baron, intently at Lithia, a woman. Now, she angrily slammed the table. That's exactly why I'm here to see you. After hearing that, he let out a small sound as Lithia pressed on. First, let me ask you, has Kazan always lived alone? Johan calmly replied, If you mean by itself, then yes, it has been since it was young. Hearing this, she lowered her head in despair. Oh goodness. He grew even more curious and asked, What is it? Lithia quickly continued, Your Grace must clarify the training priorities. As I understand it, your top priority is to make sure Kazan isn't aggressive toward other dragons. And you want it to accept food from someone other than yourself, right? Johan leaned back in his chair and confirmed. Correct, she said with determination. Then we have to move Kazan immediately. He still didn't understand what Lithia meant. Why? Kazan lives alone because it's uncomfortable around other dragons, and they avoid Kazan too. she asserted. That's why it must be moved. I know it's difficult to manage, but isolating. Oh goodness. He grew even more curious and asked, what is it? Lithia quickly continued. Your Grace must clarify the training priorities. Oh goodness. He grew even more curious and asked, what is it? Lithia quickly continued. Your Grace must clarify the training priorities. Oh goodness. He grew even more curious and asked, what is it? Lithia quickly continued. Your Grace must clarify the training priorities. He unconsciously tightened his grip. Then I'll leave the entire responsibility for this training to trainer Lithia. Shall I? She wasn't surprised by Johan's offer. Of course, Duke. This is part of Kaizen's training. He unconsciously tightened his grip. Then I'll leave the entire responsibility for this training to trainer Lithia. Basic obedience training. Moving Kaizen's quarters will take time, so I plan to conduct the obedience training during that time. He processed what she said and then asked, I see, so you're saying 1 week will be enough? Lithia let out a dazed sound, while Basco face-palmed in exasperation. The Duke, Johan, tapped his fingers lightly on the desk. You said it yourself, that you would train Kaizen into submission while he's being moved. Something to look forward to. In a flash, he was right in front of her. Johan looked at Lithia seriously and said, I trust you're not such an incompetent trainer, that you would fail at your very first assignment as my exclusive trainer. He judged the expression on her face. Well, you really take every word to heart. Look at that expression, on your face. I bet no one has ever dared to speak to you that way, have they? The other trainers just kiss up to you, don't they? Meanwhile, Lithia declared with full confidence, I will produce results that will satisfy you, Duke. Johan was very pleased with her reaction. Yes, that's the spirit. A little later, Lithia was outside munching on an apple. She chewed thoughtfully, confused. He unconsciously tightened his grip. Then I'll leave the entire responsibility for this training to trainer Lithia. It's so obvious. How ridiculous. Well, I'm busy right now anyway, so it's not like I could have a proper chat with them. Then Lithia tossed the apple. She was eating into a basket behind her. Today is the day I present the results of the basic obedience training. He unconsciously tightened his grip. Then I'll leave the entire responsibility for this training to trainer Lithia, and commanded, Now, let's go, Kaizen. It let out a growl and began to move, but I have to keep my promise. I have to show its master the sight he's been waiting for. The weather today was quite nice, and the sun shone down everywhere. Now all that's left is to get to the location. A man was panicking nearby. Hey, calm down, calm down. I have to show its master the sight he's been waiting for. The weather today was quite nice, and the sun shone down everywhere, letting out a low growl. Will Kaizen actually obey my commands in front of the other dragons? The other trainers were struggling to control their own dragons. Hey, calm down, calm down. At that moment, Lithia gave a command, Kaizen, back. It immediately lowered, its head backing up as she commanded. But she wasn't satisfied yet, calling out, a little further. Kaizen didn't dare to disobey and continued backing up, letting out a growl. In front of the other trainers, Lithia commanded, down, when everyone saw it lie, letting out a low growl. Will Kaizen actually obey my commands in front of the other dragons? The other trainers, just as trainer Lithia had declared, it was perfectly following all the basic commands. At that moment, she watched on. She stared off, thinking, I'm sure I trained him really well, so what's with that look? Isn't he happy? Meanwhile, Johan was looking straight ahead. He then opened his mouth to greet her. You've arrived. Kaizen was now staring daggers at Johan. As Kaizen let out a cry, Lithia earnestly explained, dragons aren't tools, they're living creatures, and you never know when or how they'll act unexpectedly. Now, based on the situation, Johan gave his order. I am entrusting you with teaching the ducal family's apprentice trainers. As Kaizen let out a cry, Lithia earnestly explained, dragons aren't tools, they're living creatures. Why me? Johan calmly replied, haven't I already told you? They are all just... Lydia looked at Johan to report on the situation. He suddenly wondered why she was so calmly explaining that nothing is ever perfect. Apprentices. The exclusive trainer for the House of Anbaron left for some reason, in charge of controlling and training the dragons, were apprentices who aren't even official trainers? Wait a minute. Does that mean today's training? After a moment's thought, she angrily demanded, why are you only telling me something so important now? What would you have done if an emergency had occurred? He replied without a hint of concern, I was here, so I would have handled those apprentices myself. Hearing that, she trembled with rage. Is that so? And Johan smiled and continued, it's a good thing the trainer's submission training was a success, otherwise I'm sure a lot of people would have been sacrificed. You almost had to take full responsibility for that incident, you know. Her anger finally exploded. This crazy master! A moment later, Lithia was furiously punching a sandbag. They don't even have a single exclusive trainer? The more she thought about it, the less sense it made. This isn't some backwater family, it's the House of Anbaron. Her anger finally exploded. This crazy master! A moment later, Lithia was furiously punching a sandbag. They don't even have an exclusive trainer is crucial, yet they don't even have one? Lydia slammed her fist into the sandbag. That's like saying, we're a noble family with a long history, but we don't have a family tree. Just then, he appeared at the door. Well, I suppose that's not entirely wrong. She was completely startled by Johan's appearance. Your Grace? What are you doing here? He stood at the door and explained the reason. I just stopped by to commend you for successfully completing Kaizen's submission training, but it seems that's unnecessary now. Do you remember the contents of the contract? Lithia awkwardly averted her gaze. Yes, Your Grace. He cut her off before she could finish. It states that if the trainer needs to conduct additional training, they will receive an incentive bonus. As a trainer, Do you think having the apprentices around is beneficial to Kaizen's training? For a second, Lydia didn't know how to respond. Well, she was thinking to herself, the contract? Lydia awkwardly averted her gaze. Yes, Your Grace. He cut her off before she could finish. She was eating into a basket behind her. Today is the day I present the results of the basic obedience training. Oh my god, he's actually twisting this back on me. Lydia thought for a moment before running out, but, Your Grace. At that, Johan slightly lowered. Is he not? I have a feeling. At that moment, Lydia bluntly voiced her suspicion. Your Grace, are you? I could tell he was really mad. I saw him hesitate, and then I started explaining that since it was in the contract, I understood my duty to instruct the apprentice trainers. It is my responsibility, but even so, when it comes to the noble Anbaran family, there must be secret techniques passed down to the successor trainers. Do you still keep records of them? Johan suddenly became curious. She must have heard many rumors in noble circles, right? She realized she had said something out of line, so she took the initiative to admit her mistake. I'm sorry, I primarily train dragons for people from the kingdom, so I am not aware of the details of the nobility's internal affairs. He didn't try to hide it and spoke frankly. Bosco couldn't believe it, exclaiming, What? Meanwhile, Johan continued calmly. I said Kaizen likes them. It practically lies. Then I suppose I should explain that part first. Before an Agris dragon sought me out, the ducal family, legitimate heirs. You can imagine what happened next, can't you? Since none of them were the rightful successors, of course they coveted the position of head of the family. Among them, my uncle was extremely greedy and always thought that if he couldn't have something, then nobody else could either. What do you think he did to the exclusive trainers? Exclusive? Lydia was silent as she listened to Johan's explanation, and her next words startled him. This will take some time. I will learn about the Agris line through Sir Kaizen's line. And while I exchange information with the apprentices of the ducal family, I'm sure they have more experience than me, so I think it will be helpful. I will postpone changing the Agris dragon's living quarters for now. Instead, I will increase the time it interacts with other dragons and coordinate with the apprentices. Johan did not object, saying, Alright, if you think that's for the best, then do as you please. But I didn't expect this, since it wasn't mentioned when we signed the contract, so I thought you would request to terminate it. Lydia spoke without a trace of fear. If I did that, I would be killed, wouldn't I? Rather than let a dragon trainer reveal the family scandal, you would surely kill me, to silence me. Am I wrong? The sky was clear and blue, with sunlight shining everywhere. Right now, Lydia was thinking, well, I can feel this atmosphere. It's clear they don't like me. Just then, Basco, who was beside her, began the introduction, as the Duke mentioned yesterday. This is the new exclusive trainer who will be in charge of training all of you starting today. Lydia managed a polite smile. Hello, my name is Lydia, and as of today, I have been appointed as the exclusive trainer for the Anbaran family. I look forward to everyone's cooperation. She looked at their expressions and thought, just as I expected. He saw their reactions and opened his mouth. I understand everyone's hesitation and concern, but please keep in mind that trainer Lydia was personally selected by the Duke himself. Lydia felt as if she'd been struck by lightning. He what? But Basco didn't. Notice her strange reaction. Now then, please feel free to have a chat, trainer Lydia. At that moment, Lydia was trembling from head to toe. In this atmosphere, these people, who are meeting me for the first time, are all in shock, and the ones pretending to be friendly are tense and keeping their distance. Well, from their perspective, I suppose this reaction was predictable. After a moment of thought, she spoke up. It is true that I will be training all of you from now on, under orders of the Duke, but I don't know anything about this place yet. The ones who know the most about the Anbaran family's dragons aren't me, but all of you. I'll share what I learned while getting my training certification, and from my time working at the Asha training grounds, and in return, I'd be very grateful if you all shared your knowledge about the dragons here, especially the Agri type. Say something. Just then, Bruce spoke up with a snarky tone. Aren't you supposed to be so skilled that the Duke himself personally invited you? What if an apprentice trainer makes a mistake and pisses off an Agreste dragon? And from my time working at the Asha training grounds, and in return, I'd be very grateful if you all. The wrong food and was almost burned alive, and I nearly got gored. We can't even handle them, so how are we supposed to help? She was pretty surprised by their reaction. Seriously, this crew. However, Lydia kept a calm expression on her face. I'm sure everyone here knows just how dangerous the dragons are, which is exactly why we need to be open and share information with one another. He looked at her and said with a smile, Nobody wants to get killed by a dragon they're supposed to be caring for. A female trainer chimed in. Plus, we're only apprentices. We aren't even certified yet. Lydia paid that no mind and said, Certifications don't matter. Everyone here cares about the dragons, don't you? I'm not here to order you around. I just want to become your colleague and care for the dragons in this mansion. Together. As a fellow dragon lover, please, I'm asking for your cooperation. You're definitely going to kill me to silence me. Am I wrong? Right now, she was standing face to face with Johan. At first, he was rather surprised by Lydia's words, but soon, Johan couldn't hold it in. Together. As a fellow dragon lover, please, I'm asking for your cooperation. You're definitely going to kill me to silence me. Am I wrong? Then, Johan praised her. You're very clever. I like that. If you weren't, your fate would probably be the same as the trainers who came before you. She heard that and immediately realized he was actually threatening her. He totally is. He turned away and continued. Of course, I'll ensure. You're paid handsomely, so there's no room for complaints, is there? But first, you'll have to prove your worth, just like an apprentice. If you want to live. Her face darkened at this. Are you kidding me? An employer who uses your life and money to pressure me and the other apprentices. At that moment, someone spoke up. Since you're the exclusive trainer, you must know the best way to get to know dragons is with some hands-on experience, right? At that, she looked up and looked ahead. A long-haired guy calmly directed, "Go ahead and feed the dragons here." Lytia looked at the dragons that were roaring and looked absolutely terrifying and asked, "All by myself?" He smiled and confirmed, "This is the most basic task of all." She became even more indignant after hearing that. They're totally messing with me. Those scumbags. But if I say I can't do it, they'll jump at the chance to talk trash. Hell no, I'd rather die then. Let them see me falter. So, Lytia forced a smile and said, "I just need to feed them, is that right?" Suddenly, she was startled and glanced inside, while the long-haired guy confirmed again, "Yep, that's right, it's a piece of cake. That'll free up time for me to do other things." Lythia spoke again. "As you said, while doing these kinds of jobs. Basically, I have a better understanding of dragons, so from now on I'll take full responsibility for feeding them." He replied a bit awkwardly, "Right." She offered a radiant smile and suggested, "Why are you still standing there? You'll only be in the way, so you should go now." The long-haired man heard this and remained silent. As Lydia watched him leave so quickly, she thought, "Is this how they act? Unbelievable. Do they think they're the first ones to give me this kind of trouble? I've already been through hell at the Asa training grounds, the legendary troublemaker of Asa exploited me. Do they think I've never experienced this before? They underestimate me. You're all going to regret giving this task to me." Then she approached a dragon. "You're hungry, aren't you? I'll get you something to eat right away." It responded with a few growls. Lythia suddenly noticed something unusual. "Why are its scales like this?" She looked at the dragon, eating so eagerly, and concluded, "This looks like a sign of malnutrition. You haven't been eating properly, have you? Of course, no wonder you're devouring your food like that." Lythia heard it let out a soft growl and thought to herself, "I just wanted to work with them, but they dare to care for the dragons like this. And they even had the nerve to threaten me. I'm going to drill the fundamentals of being a trainer into their heads." Outside, the sky was clear, and sunlight shone everywhere. At this moment, the long-haired man was a bit worried. "I wonder if this is okay? Even our seniors warned us to make sure the dragons are properly fed. Taking care of 30 dragons all by herself?" Just then, Bruce angrily shouted, "We've been looking after those dragons for years, and now some trainer from the capital shows up and says, she's going to lead us? Do you really think that makes any sense? Taking care of dragons? Don't make me laugh. Just you wait. It won't be long before she's exhausted and gives up." 1 week later, a dragon roared in displeasure as its mouth was held open. The long-haired man saw this and thought it was strange. "Why is it like this?" Another trainer was completely stunned. "This is Tada. What the hell? Bruce, what should I do in this situation?" Bruce was also completely bewildered by the sight. "I don't know either." He suddenly found it strange. Just a few days ago, these dragons were so calm. What made them change? Just then, Lydia showed up and said, "Is something wrong? It's time for training." Hearing this, Russell let out an awkward little. 1 week later, a dragon roared in displeasure as its mouth was held open. The long-haired man saw this and thought it was strange sound, catching Bruce's attention. He then quickly coughed. "It's nothing." She remained silent. "Change?" Just then, Lydia showed up and said, "Is something wrong? It's time for training." Hearing this, Russell let out an awkward little. Found it strange. Just a few days ago, these dragons were so calm. What made them? Gruff, after putting it all together, gritted his teeth in anger. Then he rushed forward. "Trainer Lytia." "Wait a second." She immediately refused. "Sorry, I'm busy." Gruff pleaded. "Wait, please." At this, Lytia turned back with a smile and explained, "I'm responsible for feeding and training 30 dragons, including the Agris line. Aren't you all the apprentice trainers for the Anbaran family? You were trained in the capital. You should know better. Understand me better? So why are you clinging to me now?" He was flustered, not knowing how to explain, and immediately just said, "I am sorry, miss." I turned away and pretended not to understand. "I have no idea what you are apologizing for. Thanks to you all, I learned a great deal while preparing the food." While tending to the other dragons, Bruce still tried to explain, "Trainer." But Lythia quickly cut him off. "You all looked down on me before, and now that something has happened, you finally decide to show some respect?" The other long-haired trainers quickly changed their tune. "I will help you." "Trainer, I want to help you too." She coldly rejected them. "Forget it. You can handle it yourselves. You made this mess, and now you want me to solve it for you? Have a conscience. You brought this on yourselves, so even if you get completely trampled or bitten to death, it is not my problem, right?" Then, Lythia thought to herself while pushing the food cart, "They started this fight themselves, and now they are retreating after being cornered. If you all intended to torture me with preparing all that food, you should have predicted this outcome. I guess those apprentices were trying to copy what their seniors did when preparing food, but there was one thing they had no idea about. The amount of food they were taught was actually only half of a dragon's usual meal. The other half would normally be fed during the training process, or when they performed other tasks. This was probably a method to make the dragons obey the apprentice trainer's commands. They were so reckless, not knowing anything, they needed a huge slap in the face to learn their lesson. She finished organizing her things and stretched. "I am going to die. Finally, I have some time to breathe." Just then, Kazan let out a small, surprised sound. Lythia leaned in close and whispered to him, "Kazan, let's just be lazy for a bit. I finally have some time to myself. I swear, if anyone dares to bother me right now, I will bite them to death." Kazan also enjoyed her petting and let out a soft coo. Right now, Lithia hugged him and mumbled, "About 1 hour of free time, I need to get some rest." Just then, her eyes shot open. Lithia suddenly felt incredibly excited. Whoa, what is this? The soft breathing of a kitten in a warm room. How can it be this warm and comfortable? This is heaven. All the fatigue from the day is just melting away. Kazan, you really are the best. Johan suddenly pulled back the curtain and entered, calling softly, "Kazan?" He was puzzled when it flapped its wings, making a shooing gesture. Seeing that, Johan grew worried. "Are you okay?" Then he saw Kazan let out an annoyed growl. It was only when he got closer that he saw she was sound asleep. "Trainer Lithia, why is she here?" It seems that the apprentice trainers did not follow Trainer Lithia's guidance. After observing for a few days, she took it upon herself to be in charge of all 30 dragons. When he heard that report, Johan could not believe it. "What is this? Why did I not receive any report?" Basco adjusted his glasses and reported, "As I surmise, she probably saw this as an issue among the trainers and wanted to handle it on her own." Now, he stared intently at Lithia. He mused, "If she is working this hard, she could have just used her authority to discipline those apprentices." Johan looked into its eyes and suddenly understood. "Are you telling me I should not wake her?" Kazan let out a soft sound as if to confirm. Seeing this, he gently reached out to tuck a strand of her hair. "All right, if she wants to solve this on her own, I will not interfere, but only for a little while." "Well, if Instructor Lydia collapses from overwork, I'll be in big trouble." A moment later, a loud shout woke Lydia up. Instructor Lydia, where are you?" She shot up in a panic. "I'm wide awake now." Seeing it growl unhappily, Lydia soothed it. Sorry, it was just a reflex." The voice of someone kept echoing, making her ears hurt. "Instructor Lydia." At this point, a helpless Lydia thought, "No, what's with that panicked tone? He sounds like a lost orphan. What happened?" Then, she went out, annoyed, and reminded him, "Keep your voice down. Did you forget we're in the Dragon Agris's territory?" Now, Zach Soul looked at Lydia on the verge of tears. "There you are, Instructor. It's terrible." She looked at him and wondered, "Why do I feel like I've seen this face before?" Meanwhile, Zach Soul was telling himself, "Calm down, take a deep breath. The thing is, the dragons escaped from their pen. The moment we opened the gate, they bolted out before we could even react." After hearing this, Lydia calmly asked, "Oh, so you went in there to tie them up and they escaped during the chaos?" He confirmed with a tremble, "Yes, exactly." She received the confirmation and said, "And now you want me to clean up this mess?" Faced with Lithia's anger, Jackson trembled as he answered. The Alpha led the other dragon steeds and ran far away. She continued to inquire, "Did you even try to stop them?" He hastily replied, "The dragons wouldn't listen." Lydia imagined what she really wanted to say was, "You guys deal with it yourselves." But I can't. Even though they're ferocious dragon steeds, dragons are still dragons. If we don't get them under control quickly, things will only get worse. After thinking it over, she called out loudly, "Kazan!" It heard her and roared in response. Lithia hurried out and ordered Zatsu behind her. "Open the stable doors wide. I'll go find them and bring them back." The dragon steed, a dragon that resembles a horse. Instead of fur, they have scales, a flowing mane like a lion's, and a sharp tail. Lithia, sitting on Kazan's back, carefully searched below, where the dragon steeds would likely be. She told Kazan to go higher, and he immediately shot upwards. Then Lithia suddenly saw something, she said upon spotting. The whole herd of dragon steeds below found them. Lithia guessed that because they have horse-like instincts, they would love to run in an open field. The blue dragon looked like it was having a blast. She cheered up seeing it too. "That's the Alpha! Look how excited it is!" Lithia took out her whistle and blew a signal. The Alpha heard it and looked up, startled. At the same time, Kazan landed on the ground. She asked warmly, "Did you all enjoy your little stroll?" "Sorry, but it's time to go home." Seeing the Alpha's attitude, Lydia felt a bit annoyed. It seemed they had no intention of returning. Of course, if she had come alone, it would be difficult to handle, but she wasn't. Both her and Kazan's presence was incredibly intimidating. Lydia crossed her arms and asked the dragon steeds, "All right, it's time to go back, isn't it?" Back at the training grounds, everyone was still racking their brains on how to handle the situation. A long-haired man held his face in his hands, helplessly wondering, "What should we do?" Bruce snapped, ordering, "Take a short break and then continue searching for the dragon steeds." The other man couldn't take it anymore and yelled, "What's the use of that? If we try to ride them, they'll just get scared and bolt the moment we get close, so it's nearly impossible. Even if we find them, do you really think they'll listen to us and come back?" The older man also shouted in frustration. "So what? Are you just going to sit there and do nothing if the Duke holds you responsible for the missing wyverns? Do you have a clear plan on how to compensate him? If you understand, then hurry up and go find them." Suddenly someone came running up from behind to report, "Bruce, the wyverns are coming back." The herd of wyverns flew in a line toward the training grounds, with Lydia sitting on the back of the leader. Following behind was Kazan. She yelled out an order, "Open the training ground gates." The gates were immediately opened, and the herd of wyverns swiftly rushed in. Inside, the crowd stared at the scene before them, stunned into silence. How could this be? Lydia warily dismounted from the lead wyvern. Someone called out hesitantly, "Trainer Lydia," she furiously yelled, startling everyone. "Are you all out of your minds? You are trainers. Your most basic duty is to be in charge of the wyverns. What kind of trainers lets an entire herd of wyverns escape like that?" A terrifying silence fell over the area. No one dared to say a word in protest. Seeing no movement, she asked, "Nothing to say, Bruce?" At that moment, with a resigned expression, he stepped forward. He walked straight toward Lydia without hesitation. Bruce knelt before her, admitting his fault. "I am truly ashamed," Lydia asked seriously. "Do you admit that your approach was completely wrong?" He was sincerely remorseful. "Yes, we admit it," she said decisively. "So, are you ready to stop this meaningless resistance and start working together?" Hearing that, Bruce, at that moment, with a resigned expression, he stepped forward. He walked straight toward Lydia without hesitation. Bruce knelt before her, admitting his fault. She sighed helplessly. "What authority do I even have? And I'm pretty sure I said from the start that I need every single one of you." Lydia extended her hand to Bruce. When he just stood there dumbfounded, she offered cheerfully, "I won't overlook the hard work of the trainers who have dedicated themselves to the duchy. Mutual respect is all I ask." Bruce also took Lydia's hand. He bowed his head in thanks. "Thank you very much, Trainer Lydia. From now on, we will follow your guidance." Seeing Bruce's remorseful expression, she felt a sense of relief, knowing things were settled. About time. It should have been like this from the start. Suddenly, someone appeared from behind. Johan, leading a group of soldiers, looked around and spoke up. "So what exactly is going on here?" Lydia reported. "There was a bit of a commotion, but it's been handled." Suddenly, someone appeared from behind. Johan, leading a group of soldiers, looked around and spoke up. "Trainer Lydia, are you saying that the entire herd of wyverns ridden by the duchy's knights escaping was just a bit of a commotion?" Lydia seriously considered Johan's question. He was not wrong, but she spoke up in their defense. "The wyverns have returned safely, and it's probably thanks to the lead one being quite intelligent. It even recruited a few wild wyverns into the herd. Can't you let it slide just this once?" Hearing this, he just stared at Lydia, his expression unchanging. Johan confirmed. "So you mean the trainers are the ones who made a serious mistake?" She still tried to speak up for them. "Because everything turned out all right in the end, right? Besides, it would be a huge problem if the trainers left now. I can manage feeding them, but I can't train them. Besides, even though they're just trainees, but it would be difficult to replace them all at once, since they're the ones who know the ducal family's dragons best." He looked at Lydia thoughtfully, reconsidering her words, and finally, Johan made his decision. "Since Trainer Lydia has dealt with their mistake, I will not punish them, in accordance with the rules. However, the apprentice trainers will have their pay reduced for the next 1 year, and if after 1 year they fail to prove their competence, I will dismiss them immediately." Hearing this, the trainers all quickly bowed deeply in thanks. Truly wanted to dismiss us. He could still easily fill the vacancies left by the trainers. However, the apprentice trainers will have their pay reduced for the next 1 year, and if after 1 year they fail to prove... He looked at Lydia thoughtfully, reconsidering her words, and finally, Johan made his decision. Johan crossed his arms, confused, wondering why she was sleeping here. Lydia was fast asleep, snuggled up to Kazan. It let out an excited sound. He approached Kazan with suspicion. Impossible. It seemed to be growling angrily. Johan picked Lydia up and explained, "You can be comfortable, but the trainer can't. You also. Don't want the trainer to get so sick she can't come outside, right?" Kazan seemed to contemplate what he said. Finally, it let out a resigned sound and gave in, returning to the palace. "When people are backed into a corner, they show their true colors, even though there wasn't a single trainer I could trust who was also competent." Understanding Lydia. "Don't want the trainer to get so sick she can't come outside, right?" Kazan seemed to contemplate. Johan ordered the butler to prepare a room for Trainer Lydia and to summon a priest. The nearby servant bowed in obedience. "As you command, Your Grace," he added, "since she is the exclusive trainer of the ducal estate, even though there wasn't a single trainer I could trust who was also competent." Understanding Lydia. Not only did she bring back the escaped wyverns, she also brought back wild dragons, and even rode Kazan skillfully, a responsible and valuable talent. Doesn't that shatter the suspicion that she only has credentials and no real-world experience? How could someone like her be unknown until now? The soundly sleeping Lydia stirred slightly, and Johan, startled, quickly looked away. He couldn't help but admit, it seems this incident left a rather deep impression. That must be why I can't take my eyes off her, he thought to himself. Johan confirmed. "So you mean the trainers are the ones who made a serious mistake?" She still tried to speak up for them. "Because," what he said. Finally, it let out a resigned sound and gave in, returning to the palace. "When people are backed into a corner, they show their true colors." Always wanted to say that. But for real, where am I? I'm sure the last thing I remember was Trainer Lydia. She looked back at him and said, "Mr. Butler." The butler pushed a food cart forward, announcing, "Please get some rest first." Doesn't that shatter the suspicion that she only has credentials and no real-world experience? Always wanted to say that. But for real, where am I? I'm sure the last thing I remember was... What the heck? It was only then that she noticed the nightgown she was wearing. He quickly explained, "The maids, Trainer Lydia." She looked back at him and said, "Mr. Butler." The butler pushed a food cart forward, announcing, "Please get some rest first." He said, "You were exhausted from overworking yourself lately. You've been asleep for almost a whole day." Lydia was practically petrified. "A whole day? Mr. Butler, where are my clothes?" The butler was flustered and didn't know how to respond. Well, and she was in a complete panic. Kazan must be starving to death after being neglected all day. Suddenly a voice said, "There's no need to worry." Both of them turned their eyes toward where the sound came from. Johan repeated clearly, "If you're worried about Kazan, I've already taken care of him. Come and eat with me." Lydia stiffened, looking puzzled. "What's this?" Why is he suddenly being so nice to me? A moment later, the two of them were sitting across from each other at the dining table. Lytia took a bite, thinking to herself, this is a little awkward, but man, this is delicious. Johan finally asked the question that had been on his mind. Isn't sleeping in Kazan's cage dangerous? She scratched her face, explaining, it's an excellent heating. Matt. Lytia felt a little embarrassed. Just as I thought. He saw. He carefully reminded her, it's not that. I don't understand the feeling, but I would appreciate it if you'd show some restraint. Hearing that, she teased, sounds like you've done that before, haven't you, Your Grace? He changed the subject and praised Lytia. You did a great job yesterday. Let's take this opportunity to be frank. The truth is, training Kazan's communication skills was just an excuse. My real goal. Matt. Lytia felt a little embarrassed. Just as I thought. He saw. He carefully reminded her, it's not that. In your professional opinion, do the Agrix dragons really need to live socially? She fell silent, as if she'd just learned something incredibly serious. Lydia surmised, I understand you don't like that idea. Johan admitted, that's right. From now on, if you just handle Kazan's food and basic training. She suddenly cut him off. But the communication training is essential, he asked. Why? Lytia explained her reasoning. Because Kazan is a dragon living in the human world, not in the wild. Even if he's a rare type of dragon or a species that only chooses the ducal family. If he causes too much harm to people, extreme measures will have to be taken, Johan inquired. And what would that be? Lydia put her fork down, her expression dead serious, killing him. You wouldn't want that to happen, would you? Upon hearing those words, Johan's face darkened and he slammed the table in anger. Don't you dare! I would never allow it! Lytia still spoke with a firm voice. Even if your grace doesn't allow it, what about the royal family? A dragon with the nickname Walking Volcano that doesn't even have basic communication skills. What if he goes on a rampage while your grace is away? If that were to happen, do you think they would just overlook it? She felt a pang of guilt, thinking to herself, in her head, maybe I was too harsh, but I can't guarantee that won't happen. This isn't just a problem for Kazan. From the start, the human world was made for humans, not for dragons. Lydia said slowly, the fact that there haven't been any incidents up until now is thanks to the careful care and affection your grace has for Kazan. I know it's a difficult decision to make right away, but I hope you will consider it. Now that I've signed the contract and become the exclusive trainer, I will do my absolute best for you. So, how much vacation time do I get? Johan turned away abruptly and said, take a week off. During that time, done that before, haven't you, Your Grace? He changed the subject and praised Lytia. You did a great job yesterday. Right away, but I hope you will consider it. Now that I've signed the contract and become the exclusive, he kept his cold, emotionless expression while looking at her. Before trainer Lydia arrived, you should prioritize your health. The moment he left, Lytia breathed a sigh of relief and leaned back in her chair. Maybe I was too harsh. He obviously treasures Kazan, but every time we talk, it feels like we just stay here and rest. When she heard that, she was so surprised her jaw hit the floor. A whole week? But what about Kazan and Johan? Misunderstand each other. I'm not sure, but the maid standing beside her respectfully asked, Lydia, would you like some more food? Another plate of meat, please. On the third day of Lytia's vacation, she was carrying a stack of books when she saw Johan looking extremely gloomy and listless. Your Grace, are you all right? He wasn't in a good mood at all, brushing past her. Of course I'm fine. Seeing his face and that gruff attitude made her think, what's with him? He's not fine at all. Seeing his exhausted face from taking care of Kazan made Lydia offer, it looks like a week is too long. I can, he answered decisively. No, just keep resting. I don't want to assign work to someone who isn't fully recovered. Hearing that, Lydia thought with some confusion, he's clearly not okay, what happened? But ignoring her concern, the two of them walked past one another, and she thought to herself, whatever. If it were serious, he'd tell me, right, it's only for a week. When my vacation is over, I'll get back to the grind. On the 5th day of Lydia's vacation, she was relaxing peacefully in the sun when out of nowhere, she heard a panicked cry. Please help us, trainer Lytia. Just 2 days ago, she was relaxing with some tea, take a sip and speak slowly. The long-haired guy just stood there on the verge of tears, whining to her. Please, go check on the dragon, Kazan. Her head filled with question marks, she slowly lowered her sunglasses. Isn't that an issue? With the dragon you're in charge of, she thought to herself. If it's Kazan, the Duke is taking care of him, so why are you here? He stood there looking flustered. The dragons we're in charge of are fine because we're following the feeding guide you gave us. The problem is that Kazan screams every single night, making the other dragons anxious, and a few of the more sensitive ones have even